I want you to try something for me right now. Don't move. Just sit there or stand there, however you're listening to this.
Okay.
And I want you to do a quick internal scan. Think about your knees,
Uh-oh.
right? Think about your lower back. Are they silent? Or is there this low-level hum going on? A little bit of static.
That is a very dangerous question to ask people first thing in the morning.
It really is.
Yeah.
But seriously, picture this scenario. I bet this sounds painfully familiar to a lot of you. You wake up, you swing your legs out of bed, and immediately before your feet even hit the floor, your knees feel stuck.
Yeah.
Or maybe you've been sitting at your desk for 2 hours, you go to stand up to get a coffee, and your hips give you that deep, dull ache that makes you walk like a cowboy for the first 10 steps.
It's the morning shuffle.
The morning shuffle.
We've all seen it. We've all felt it.
Exactly. And then there's the classic. You reach up to grab something from a high shelf, and your shoulder makes that distinct, crunching, popping sound.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a biological percussion section.
I've actually heard it called the soundtrack of aging, which is, yeah, it's depressing, but it's accurate.
I really hate that you called it that. It makes me feel like my joints are popping bubble wrap every time I squat down. But here's the thing. And this is really the core of what we're digging into today. The common assumption, and I think we all do this, is that this is just normal.
Right. We just accept it.
We tell ourselves, well, I'm over 40 now.
Yeah.
Parts wear out. This is just the price of admission for getting older.
We completely normalize the dysfunction.
We do.
Oh.
And for decades, the only question most of us have asked, and honestly, the only question the medical industry seems interested in answering is, how do we reduce the pain?
That's right. It has been a completely reactive approach. The entire industry is built around symptom management. But if you look at the stack of research we have in front of us today,
Which is substantial.
very substantial, specifically regarding the science behind biodynamics and this concept of functional restoration, there is a massive paradigm shift happening right now.
It's a shift that honestly gave me a bit of an aha moment when I was reading through the source material for this deep dive. Because the researchers aren't asking, how do we stop the pain anymore? They're asking something much more interesting.
Yeah.
They're asking, what if the pain isn't the real problem? What if the pain is just the smoke signal for something much deeper?
And that distinction, that difference between the fire and the smoke, it changes absolutely everything about how we treat our joints.
So today's deep dive is strictly about this shift. We are looking at the research behind Biodynamix Joint Genesis and how they were attempting to flip the script on joint relief. We're going to unpack why the pain-first model is failing us, and we're going to get into the nitty-gritty science of what is actually happening inside that joint capsule.
And at the heart of this entire discussion is a conflict. It's the difference between masking a problem, which, let's be honest, is what most of us do,
Oh, totally.
and actually restoring the environment inside the joint.
Okay, so let's unpack masking first, because I feel like I'm extremely guilty of this. The source material outlines what it calls the predictable pattern of traditional joint care. And I went down this list and I was ticking boxes left and right. It was like a horoscope for my bad knees.
Let's hear the list. I'm sure it's going to be very familiar.
Okay, step 1, take a painkiller, ibuprofen, aspirin, whatever happens to be in the cabinet. Step 2, apply some sort of topical cream that smells like intense menthol so everyone in the room knows you're hurting.
Right.
Step 3, maybe wear a brace if it's really bad. And step 4, just stop doing the thing that hurts. You know, oh, my knee hurts when I run. I guess I'm not a runner anymore.
It's a strategy of avoidance and suppression.
But play devil's advocate for a second here. If pain is the body's warning signal, isn't taking a painkiller smart? I mean, if I'm in pain, I can't move, I can't go to work, I can't play with my kids. Isn't masking it better than just suffering?
In the short term, sure. If you sprain your ankle, you need to manage that acute inflammation. But the problem arises when that becomes your lifestyle. The limitation, and this is what the text highlights so clearly, is that none of those things, not the pills, not the creams, not the braces, address why the joint is stiff in the first place.
Right. It handles the ouch, but not the why.
Exactly. Most over-the-counter solutions work by dulling inflammation signals or numbing the nerves. They help you get through Tuesday, but they don't do a single thing to improve the function of the joint for Wednesday. In fact, they might make Wednesday worse.
The analogy the source uses here is pretty striking. It says, treating joint pain this way is like turning off a smoke alarm without checking for fire.
That is a very powerful image, isn't it? Imagine that scenario. You're in your house, the alarm starts blaring. That means there is a fire, the root cause, damaging the structure of your home. You walk over, you take the batteries out of the alarm, and you say, ah, finally. peace and quiet.
Meanwhile, the kitchen is engulfed in flames.
Precisely. In this case, the fire is the degradation of the joint environment, the drying out of the tissues, the actual friction happening inside.
And because you took the batteries out, because you took the painkiller, you feel fine. So you go for a run on that dry, grinding joint.
Exactly. And that is the danger. Because you silence the messenger, you might actually accelerate the damage. You're grinding gears without oil, but you just can't hear the screeching anymore.
That is actually terrifying when you put it that way.
It should be. The consequence of this approach is exactly what people experience in their 50s and 60s. The stiffness returns, usually worse than before, the creaking gets louder, and slowly over time your mobility declines because you never actually address the underlying issue.
Okay, so that's the gloom and doom. That's the old model. We've scared everyone enough.
Fair enough.
The reason we're doing this deep dive is because there's a new conversation happening. The source material talks about a shift away from dulling signals and moving towards restoring the internal joint environment.
This is where we have to get a little nerdy, if that's okay.
We love nerdy here. Go for it.
To understand this shift, you have to understand what a healthy joint actually looks like. We tend to think of joints as just bone meets bone, but there is a complex ecosystem in there. The text lists 4 key components for this: proper lubrication, adequate hydration, flexible cartilage, and balanced inflammation.
But the source really zooms in on one of those specifically. It calls it the star player.
Synovial fluid.
Yes, synovial fluid. I feel like I haven't heard that term since 10th grade biology, but apparently it's everything.
It really is the unsung hero of human movement. Think of synovial fluid as the body's natural motor oil, but it's even cooler than that. It's this thick, almost egg-white consistency fluid that lives inside the joint capsule. Its primary job is to separate the bones so they glide over one another without friction.
So when I'm waving my arm around right now, if I have enough synovial fluid, there's no actual contact happening. I'm just floating.
In a healthy joint, yes, you are essentially hydroplaning. When you have enough of it, and when it's healthy, movement feels very specific ways. The source uses 3 words: smooth, stable, and effortless.
Effortless. That's the dream right there. That's what I remember feeling like when I was 20. I didn't even think about my knees. They just worked.
That's the feeling of internal hydration. But contrast that with the state of declining lubrication. When that fluid dries up or thickens, the joint feels dry. It feels stiff. It feels rusty.
The source uses a mechanical analogy here that I really liked. It says to think of your joints like mechanical hinges on a door. If the hinge on your front door starts squeaking like crazy, what do? You don't tape a pillow over it to muffle the sound.
No, you oil it. You restore the lubrication.
But taking a painkiller for a squeaky knee is basically taping a pillow over the hinge.
Yeah.
You're covering the sound, but the friction is still grinding away metal on metal.
That is a perfect encapsulation of the difference. The goal of this new scientific approach isn't how do we stop the pain. It's how do we help joints function like they used to. It's about restoring the glide.
Okay, but here's where I get stuck. And I think a lot of listeners might be thinking this too right now. We're told we should drink water, right?
Yep.
Stay hydrated. If my joints are dry, why can't I just chug a gallon of water a day and fix it? Why do I need a targeted solution?
That is the million-dollar question. And the answer lies in the specific research that biodynamics is based on. It's not just about inputting water, it's about retaining it.
Okay, explain that.
Think of the cartilage in your joint like a sponge. When you're young, that sponge is wrapped up in a way that keeps it soaked. It holds on to the water you drink. But the research and the source specifically mentions Ivy League research here, points to a very specific degradation process.
I wanted to ask about that Ivy League tag. It sounds impressive, but what did they actually find?
They found that as we age, we lose a specific molecule, often called the guardian of the joint, that actually holds the moisture in place. It's called hyaluronan. Without getting too bogged down in the chemistry of it, think of it as the structure that keeps the sponge wet.
So if I lose that molecule,
Then your sponge turns into a rock. You can pour all the water you want on a rock. It won't absorb it. It just runs right off. That's why simply drinking more water doesn't cure joint stiffness in people over 50. The delivery system itself is broken.
that makes so much sense. That totally explains why I can be fully hydrated and still feel like the Tin Man when I stand up.
Exactly. The fluid becomes thin and watery instead of thick and cushioning. That is the specific decay this Ivy League data identified.
So this brings us to the actual subject of our source material today, Biodynamix Joint Genesis. Now, based on what we've just discussed, this product is positioning itself right at the center of this functional shift. It's not trying to be a painkiller.
No, not at all. The text frames biodynamics not just as another supplement on the shelf, but as a true representative of this new philosophy. It's described as doctor-formulated, and its entire mechanism of action is based on that research we just talked about.
So it's trying to turn the rock back into a sponge?
Essentially, yes. It targets the root level, joint lubrication, and hydration. The objective isn't silence. The objective is to make the joints feel smoother, stronger, and more flexible. It's trying to put the oil back in the hinge by restoring that guardian molecule we talked about.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. And honestly, this challenged a belief I've held for years. There is a section in the source that directly tackles the wear and tear myth.
Oh, this is a big one.
I feel like wear and tear is the phrase everyone uses. I use it. I tell myself, well, I played soccer in college, I ran marathons in my 30s, so obviously my knees are shot. I used up my miles. It feels like a bank account, right?
Yeah.
You only have so many steps, and I spent mine.
That is absolutely the prevailing wisdom. But the researchers behind this functional shift view it completely differently.
How so? Because it feels very logical that mechanical things just wear out over time.
They are moving away from the idea that joints inevitably grind down like brake pads on a car just because you use them. Instead, they view joint aging as a gradual loss of internal support systems.
Wait, pause on that. That's a huge mental shift. It's not that I've used my knees too much. It's that the system supporting my knees has stopped showing up to work.
Exactly. Think about it. There are plenty of people in their 70s who run marathons. If it was just simple wear and tear, their knees should be dust. But they aren't. Why? Because their internal support system, their lubrication, their hydration, is still functioning properly.
So you're saying miles aren't the enemy?
Miles without lubrication are the enemy. If you restore the hydration, you reduce the friction, and suddenly that wear and tear doesn't happen. The joint is actually self-repairing and self-lubricating if it has the right materials to work with.
That actually gives me a lot more hope. Wear and tear sounds final. Like, well, the tires are bald, time to junk the car. But loss of support system sounds like something I can fix. I can rebuild a support system.
That's the empowering part of this science. It suggests that your joint destiny isn't set in stone just because of your age or your past activity level. Biodynamics is designed to restore what is missing. It's putting the support system back online.
And that leads perfectly into the psychological aspect of this whole topic. The source talks about moving from a reactive mindset to a proactive one.
It's the difference between waking up and saying, my joints hurt, what do I take right now to get through the day? Versus asking, how do I keep my joints functioning well for the next 10 years?
It identifies a specific audience for this too. And I was surprised it wasn't just people in retirement homes.
No, not at all. It lists adults over 40 noticing early stiffness, former athletes who might have lingering tightness from old injuries, active individuals who just want preventative support. And really, anyone who feels that sensation of their joints becoming dry or rigid.
I think the former athletes one is huge. I know so many people who played high school football or did gymnastics, and now in their 30s and 40s, they just accept that they're going to be stiff forever.
Yeah.
They've integrated it as part of their identity. I'm the guy with the bad back.
And they really shouldn't have to. The text emphasizes that quality of life is the ultimate goal here. Mobility isn't just about not hurting, it's about independence. It's about the size of your world.
The size of your world, what do you mean by that?
Well, think about what happens when you have chronic stiffness or pain. You start saying, no. Do you want to go on that hike? No, my knees won't take it. Do you want to walk around the zoo with the grandkids? No, I'll just sit on the bench. You shrink your world to fit your mobility.
Wow, you shrink your world to fit your mobility. That hits home. I've seen my parents do that. Honestly,
Yeah.
I've seen myself do that.
It happens slowly. You don't even notice it's happening. But when you restore function, when you get that lubrication back, you expand your world again. You walk longer distances. You exercise consistently. You stay socially active.
That socially active point is often overlooked, isn't it? We think of joints as a purely physical thing. But if you can't move easily, you start to get isolated.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That's why this shift from masking pain to restoring function is so vital. It's not just about knees. It's about life. It's about the freedom to say yes to things.
It's about freedom. I love that. So looking at the biodynamic solution again, the source says it aligns more closely with how orthopedic researchers now view joint aging. It's trying to be that support system we talked about.
Yes. By focusing on the internal joint environment, specifically encouraging that synovial fluid production and hydration turning the rock back into a sponge, it aims to turn back the clock on that rusty feeling.
You know, we've covered a lot of ground here today. We've gone from the smoke alarm of painkillers to the oiled hinge of healthy synovial fluid. And I think for me, the biggest takeaway is that I don't have to just accept the crunch as my new normal.
You don't, and you shouldn't.
So let's recap the big takeaway here. The fundamental difference between the old way and this new functional shift.
The old way asks, how do we silence the pain? It's a short-term, symptom-focused question. It's taking the batteries out of the smoke alarm. The new way, the way championed by this biodynamics research, asks, how do we help joints glide smoothly again? It's a long-term, function-focused question. It's putting out the fire.
And Biodynamix Joint Genesis is essentially the answer to that second question. It represents this modern philosophy of hydration and lubrication.
Correct. It's about giving the body the tools it needs, specifically that hydration support, to maintain that internal environment rather than just waiting for it to fail and then numbing the result.
It's funny, we started this deep dive talking about how we accept stiffness as normal. But after reading this, it feels like we've been accepting a solution. The painkillers, the masking, that wasn't really a solution at all.
We've been accepting a patch when what we really needed was a repair.
Exactly. So here is where we leave you today. We always like to end on a provocative thought for you to chew on. If stiff joints are slowing you down, whether you're 40 or 80, ask yourself this. Are you trying to block the discomfort, or are you trying to restore what your body has lost?
Because the answer to that question dictates the strategy you should use. And as we've seen today, the strategy you choose determines the kind of movement and the kind of life you're going to have 10 years from now.
That is the truth. Don't shrink your world if you don't have to.
Thanks for diving deep with us.
It was a pleasure. Keep moving.